Hi everyone, Darren Hunter here, and we have the one and only Deniz Yusuf, and this is the PM Growth Expert Show. It is a video podcast, and we do a full audio stream version on iTunes podcast, but also for those Deniz Android users, you also can get this podcast on Podbean as well. So today we have special guest Matt Tandy. Now, Matt's very, very special. Now, Matt is he's a Californian, very proud Californian, and he's from a place called Riverside. Now, Matt, you have also spent some time not only in Australia, not only have you spent time in Adelaide, where I'm from, and for everyone else, just think of the middle of Australia at the bottom, but also, Matt, you spent time in the town that I grew up in, which is Whyalla, which is about 4 hours drive. What can I say? It probably resembles something out of New Mexico. Would you agree?
Sure. Yeah. You know, I mean, there's not jellyfish littering the crappy beach in New Mexico because they don't have a beach.
We got seaweed littering the crappy beach instead, if you remember. So
Adelaide doesn't have the guns either. You know?
Anyway, let's move on. But Matt is quite impressive background. He's managed 14 offices across the United States, over 11 states, with 3,500 doors or 1,000 managements, 1,000 properties, depends on which country you're from. So quite an impressive background and track record there, Matt. But before we get started, just want to give a quick plug promo to our exclusive partners, myconnect.com.au. So they are if you're with a utility connections company and it's not MyConnect, you are dealing direct with the power companies, which means you're lacking choice. Alrighty, MyConnect can get you connected and your tenants, your owners, your clients connected to a number of different services. So go to myconnect.com.au, have a chat to those guys. They're some of the best service people that we have ever come across, Deniz. We visited their head office in Melbourne. Very, very impressive. But anyway, Deniz, over to you.
Yeah, Matt, mate. Thanks for coming onto the show. It's awesome having an experienced realtor from the United States onto one of our podcasts. So thanks for taking the time out of your day. What time is it for you now?
It's 4:17 p.m.
4:17 p.m. on Monday, and it is in Brisbane time. It is 10:17 a.m. Tuesday.
And we're half an hour ahead of that here in Adelaide.
Yeah,
Right.
It's about the only time Adelaide's ahead of anyone else in the country, Darren, is daylight savings, the time.
Thank you for that, Deniz. Move on.
and all of our Adelaideans have just switched off from the podcast. Yeah, look, I'll send through the lotto numbers for you as well, okay, Matt? So really appreciate you popping in and spending some time with you. It's always great, connecting with you when we're over in the States. Now, when we were there in November at the Door Grow Live event, you couldn't turn up, and there was a reason why. What was that?
My wife was pregnant. She said I wasn't allowed to travel anymore. She was going to have a baby in a month.
Yeah, it was quite close. So congratulations.
Congratulations.
That's awesome. Yeah, well done for that. I was a bit disappointed that Deniz wasn't used as a name, but I've just gotten over that now. It's okay.
Well, I really pushed for a Deniz, but my wife said that's a terrible name for a girl. So,
okay, if we're going to get into the terminology of Turkish, Deniz is how you pronounce my name. It is a male and female name, but we won't go there. Okay, don't worry about it. All good. So, Matt, why did you join real estate? What was it? Is that something that you were driven to do out of school, or what happened?
I had been a financial advisor and stockbroker early on in my professional career, and then my parents had got sick, or my father got sick. So my wife and I decided My wife and I decided that we would move up to Utah, which is where my father was, be close to them. During that time, of course, I left what I was doing, and I went back to university, and just for kicks, did something pointless with my degree, And during that time, I was doing tech support for Dell on the side, and we bought our first rental. We bought an up-down duplex. We lived in the upstairs, my wife and then we rented out the basement. And that went well. That was our first introduction. There were some caveats. It was apparent I had no idea what the legal laws were on everything. And then I was looking for new employment and ended up through a friend who I met in Australia. He was doing investments out in California. His investment partner had a son, and we connected, and that's how the first company started. So kind of fell into it. I wanted to do real estate, wanted to do investments, and property management was a good fit. And so that's how we got into it.
Yeah. So you've got, we're going to talk about, your previous company as well as your current company, because, certainly they both have got some great results, and, I'm sure that listeners would be really interested to hear it. But if you could share with us your current situation, your current office location, and how that's set up, because we will certainly get into and discuss, your last office as well. But if just your situation now, your location, your type of office, sales and property management.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, our office is located in Riverside, which is a town. You could think of it as the next metropolis east of LA, north of San Diego. It's, if you have LA, you have San Diego, and then you have Riverside right here. It's a triangle.
Okay.
And really, all three have grown into one giant metropolis. Everybody feels the area is better, such as life. But really, we cover a pretty big area. In Southern California, we cover over 8,000 square miles, so about 21,000 square kilometers.
Wow.
And so we have our Riverside office, which is our headquarters. We have an office in a mountain community resort, which is very different. It's typically a vacation rental area, but we have a office in a place called Big Bear, which is a ski resort. And we have about 85 doors up there. And then we just opened up an office in Orange County. And actually just today, had someone that we've been working with who wants to come on board and open our office out east. It's sending us out a little further into a place called Coachella, which is Palm Springs, Palm Desert. There's lots of Frank Sinatra and all that used to vacation out there. No idea why. It's like 130 degrees. I don't know what that is, Celsius. It's really, really hot, like insanely hot for like months. We opened up a Colorado Springs office, and we're getting ready to open up Nevada, Las Vegas.
Okay, so you're certainly turning on some, being prepared for some super growth in your current business.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so it's quite spread out, Darren. How does that make you feel that they're going to be driving more than 15 minutes for an appointment?
Well, I did actually notice, Matt, that you liked our recent post where we were discussing, it was just a humorous meme on a property manager being questioned at a car service, getting their car service, and the technician was questioning, there's something wrong here. You've got 100,000 kilometers and your car's only done, only 6 months old. And she says, yes, I'm a property manager. So when you like that, I get it. But that's a lot of travel, a lot of time sitting on a seat in a car, not effectively doing property management. So
are you saying we're not effective
you can
property
hear my
managers?
cynicism coming through about time spent in a car as opposed to time spent managing property.
Yeah.
Well, let's be clear here in terms of how we do things, is that the area was smaller when Formatic first started, of course, and it was just me. So as you have people, I can go into what I call the hub and spoke model that I've developed. But as areas naturally, organically grow, you hire someone within those areas, and that expands out. That area, now you're growing out over here. And when you hire someone here, you get another circle extended out.
Yeah,
so that's
absolutely. Yeah. So it's all managed, from a base, but well done. I mean, 8,000 square miles is huge, and I can imagine is it mostly desert out there?
No, Riverside is just an average temperate area. Average everything. Does get a little hot. Probably about 45 Celsius or something like that. About 120 for about a week or two.
Yep.
But other than that, I mean, from Riverside is great because I can take a 45-minute to an hour 10 drive up into the mountains and go snow skiing. And then that same day, I could go drive 45 minutes the other way and go to the beach where it's going to be 75 degrees all year round. So,
Crazy.
and I can go hiking. I can go into a desert. I could go out to sand dunes in 45 minutes, desert sand dunes. It's a really diverse area in a very, very small geographic, relatively small.
Yeah, that's certainly crazy. So, I mean, if you were to give yourself some advice when you first, started in real estate, knowing what you know now, what would that be? You're tapping yourself on the shoulder, you turn around and it's you looking at yourself. What advice would you give yourself?
Document, and then systematize. There's a lot that you're never gonna, it's impossible to get everything right out of the way. In fact, I was talking with some other managers today. We were all laughing about stories that I'm not going to publicly record of our mistakes as we all started. But it comes down to the most important thing, yes, is improving your knowledge of legalities and things like that. But when you hire that first person, that second person, you always think, oh, I'll worry about it then.
Yeah.
And should have been doing it right away. And it's painful trying to go in because now you're not just, you wait too long and now you're trying to not just document, you're also trying to fix everything that's not done right. And now you're changing people's habits who you trained. So documentation and systemization.
Yeah. Okay. So that's interesting. So, with regards to those pain points, you know the pain points that will incur. So you've put a system in place to avoid it, whether it's a property sitting vacant too long or learning to answering your business inquiry as a priority, So with those and on those pain points, what would be your, top strategies? What would the top strategies be if you were to start a rent roll from scratch today? With that same knowledge that you've got now, you've gone through all those pain points, you've done your documenting, that's what you should do first. So what would be your key strategies in growing a rent roll from zero, like zero doors?
Well, so I do have some unique perspective on this, Deniz, because, I had the one company that we grew, and then I left it all to start from zero. So I will say, stepping back for a moment, that I still didn't document as well the second time as I should have. So, knowing and executing aren't exactly the same thing. But what did I do different? And it's made a big difference in our client profile too, is starting from zero, is that the first thing I did was network. I've never lived in Riverside in my life, never lived in California before I started Formatic here. But I knew it was a good area. And so I tied into the investor clubs, the foreign investor, buy investor clubs, which is really handy. Now it's mostly people who do wholesale deals or flip deals. They're flipping houses. They think they're cool or they want to be cool like that. So getting in there, and it's a longer slog. But now we get a lot of referrals from that. We get a lot of business, and these are investor clients. They're not people who just have to move out of their childhood home and they don't want you to paint their room. So that'd be number one, is find an investor club, and it's not going to pay off right away. It's going to take a while.
Yeah.
So that's
those pipelines with strategic alliances, without relying on a sales agent to refer an investor to you that's purchased a property. You're digging in prior to them even calling a sales agent.
That's right. So, I look at it as there's different funnels or whatever you want to call it, or silos. I call them silos, or channels, but you have your short-term, mid-term, and long-term payouts.
Yeah.
The networking is long-term. You may get a few things in the first couple months. Hey, that's great. But you're really trying to build up that base that is going to sustain you with much less effort and much less expense. You're trying to build that out from the beginning. Now, the trick is that you still have to get stuff up front. And for that, you know, a lot of places say, oh, you know, write down a list of all your families and friends and stuff like that. Well, that doesn't work. It's none of my family's around here. All my friends are poor, so it's not going to work out. But the you know, paid leads, you're gonna. One of the things I see, guys, is that when I look on all these groups online and I participate in things and they get into these discussions of, oh, what would you do different? They say, oh, I would be much more set. I wouldn't take any clients like this, or, you know, paid leads are the devil and all these other things. Well, look, that's all fine and dandy to talk about when you're standing up on top of the mountain that you climbed, but have those guys go back and start from scratch.
Yep.
And the reality is that if you don't have a big bank behind you that you can kind of coast along, you don't have a working spouse, then you need to take a little funding and you got to do those paid leads. Why? Because paid leads are competitive. They're more price sensitive. They're difficult. They have a higher failure rate, but they're people who need it right now.
Yep.
And so if you're trying to build your base, you need to build that now while working on getting away from that. So I say, don't toss out anything. Take what you can and just look at short-term, mid-term, long-term. And so the short answer is that network with investigators, build a great website so you look great, and then do paid leads.
Yeah, cool. So just to explain what the paid leads are for the Australian and New Zealand listeners, that's
you don't know that.
Obviously companies out there that will send you a mum and dad investor, and you do the listing presentation, you win the presentation, you may have to pay them 1 week's let in Australia. But I mean, in the United States, you're actually paying for the actual lead. You know, you may not even get the listing and you've still got to pay for it. So,
okay. So you're getting the lead, you got to pay here. If you get the result, then you pay.
Yeah.
Like Google AdWords. So Google AdWords, you know, you got to pay per click and pay per view if you ever try to get on Google. Same concept, but there's companies out here that that will pay top dollar to be the top one on there, and then they come to the property managers in that area and say, pay to be top in our list. So it's like a search engine and a search engine. It's kind of messed up. Everyone hates it. Everyone thinks you shouldn't do it, and yet it's a dead simple way to grow fast.
Yeah, look, and when we're talking about, you know, surely, you know, I totally agree with you. You've got to take on whatever business you can until you start building, you know, that the bank behind you, as you worded it, you know, and have a number. So there's quite a few people I've trained that at the end of each year, we look at the list, we look at 10% of a rent roll that we may potentially either sell off, or we may, you know, or whatever the number is, or we'll terminate. So we set a number, I add some, and then let's say I'll use 100 as an example. I say, okay, let's get to 110, then you can get rid of 5. You know, that's how we do it. So you rotate it, and you can funnel it that way as well. So, and there's certainly other means and ways of doing it. So now, I want to talk about some more systems, if that's okay. I mean, you obviously you're getting some big growth that's starting to come in now. But, you know, previously you had some super growth, you know, and there was a lot of pain points that you were talking to Darren and I about. Obviously, pain of, you know, having a BDM, no BDM, the calls coming in, etc., and how to deal with it, whether it's the property manager doing the calls or a local. So can you, you know, dig into that a little bit for us? So when you got super growth, you know, did you have a BDM in place? You were it, but there's only so much you can do when you got so many offices.
Yeah. So when it's just one office, it's easy to kind of handle all internal. And if you're a small management company and that's all you really want to be, then that's fine. You can work within those metrics. But if you want to grow, even if it's just a single location that's getting really big, there just comes a limit to, you know, it's the classic dilemma. There's only so many hours in the day, right? So the other part is that, so as we grew, we did try to get the managers in other cities to take the calls, to follow up on the leads, to do these things. And sometimes they do well, sometimes they didn't. But most time, even the ones who did well, they would do well for a couple of weeks, maybe a month or two. And they'd be excited, and we'd get excited, think, oh, this is it, and then it just falls flat. Because managers out there, you know, all of a sudden there's a bad series of maintenance issues or things like that, and they're not calling those leads, they're not taking care of things when they need to happen, and frankly, they just stop caring. they start getting picky. They start complaining about, why am I going out to an appointment where I'm not getting paid to go out to the appointment when they may not even sign? And we try to tell them, hey, you should go listen to some sales guys and learn how to sell more so it's less of a problem. But it's hard because it's not a primary source of income, even though it does benefit them long term. So in the end, we found that the best option wasn't to rely on the local people, to the local managers to be the experts in sales services in the area. It was for us to have a single person, someone who's trained as a BDM, to call in those areas, to call Colorado from Utah or whatever the case may be. And we never say we're in Colorado. We never say we aren't, that kind of thing, right? So, you know, if they ask, you're always truthful. That's always important. But, you know, you get familiar. You can look at a map. You see enough houses on the internet. You're going to figure out what good areas are and aren't in there. And you just become really good at it. And so we found that local managers were closing between 5 to 10% of deals when they were 100% in charge of it. Whereas if we kicked it off and we did everything and maybe all we had to do was send them out to a finalization appointment, then we would close 20 to 30%. So
you created basically a BDM call center that then would be doing your chasing for the business. And then if they didn't close online or over the phone, you would send out the specific property manager to meet the client at the house.
Correct. Yep.
So, I mean, look, Darren, I mean, we've always said, you know, yes, property managers can list properties and we'll all recognize that. And they've done it for years. You know, that when you've got a specific BDM that is trained on sales, that's trained on negotiating, that is a hunter, that is driven to win the business, and they enjoy the chase, and they don't have to worry about the hot water systems, the arrears, this, that, and the other. It's not dragging them down. They will do the chase, and you will win more business that way. And obviously, that's a big increase. You know, you're talking about over 20% increase in a percentage of listings.
Yeah. Well, and I wanted to clarify something here, because you'll have people say, oh, well, I close 80% or 9% of my business development. And I'm talking about total lead volume in when you have paid leads and referral leads and stuff. Look, referral leads, almost anyone can close if they're not, 90% of them. But we're talking about barely above dead warm leads, right? So These are the things that we're talking about, the difference between 5 to 10% or 20, 30%. Once you get them on the phone, usually you close 80% of those, but it's getting them and going through them. And yeah, it's a massive increase, just because it's a lot easier to train 1 or 2 people than it is to train every single manager who's also dealing with other things in their lives.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, yeah. And, you know,
I guess what I'd add as well with property managers is that, you know, I see officers making the mistake of, okay, well, we'll cut the workload back of the property manager, say, you know, half a portfolio size, and we'll get them also being the BDM, but they fail to realize, they think, well, actually now property management is half the workload, but it's not. The intensity of it and the momentum of it, all the things that happen are still going to fill that brain space 100%. And there's nothing left for them to be able to think or focus on with new business. It's still not going to work.
Yeah, that's right.
I agree.
Yeah, totally agree. So, Matt, you know, bank rings you up and they tell you that, dude, we're shutting you down at the end of the week if you don't list 10 properties. You know, we need 10 active properties coming on into your books, or we're going to have to close the doors. You know, what are you doing? What do you jump out and do?
First thing is I change banks, because my bank shouldn't have that kind of control in my life.
That's a good response.
You know, choose your partners, right? But hey, let's say I couldn't, because who knows why. All right, so using this scenario, first things first, of course, contact your network, contact your existing clients, tenants, whatever you have to do. You know, a lot of your tenants still know people who own homes and own rental properties, so they can still be a great resource if your tenants like you. So that's a key thing. You know, the owners, some of them will have other properties. Maybe they've acquired some. Maybe, you know, there's always a few clients who have a few properties that they thought is outside the area, or they're going to give to you after they tested you out, and they just got too busy. And so if you reach them, So yeah, contact all your clients, reach out to your investor networks if you've been doing the best things. And then I'd say, promotional pricing. Again, look, do I normally recommend promotional pricing? No. But this goes back to, I think of it kind of like a garden, guys, is that when you have time and times are good, you can cultivate a very nice garden of all your favorite vegetables that maybe are a little bit difficult to grow, but it's going to be fantastic. But if you're starving, then you're going to plant anything that can grow, and hopefully grows, even if it tastes like crap, at least it grows and gets you going through there. So yeah, I would do promotional pricing. I would, anything I have that's in make ready period or turn status, I'd get that rolling out to make sure that we got them going. I do whatever it took. I'd do management at a flat fee for half price if it was difference between shutting down in a week and staying going. I can always weed the crap out later.
Promotion. You're creating a promotion. You're getting on the phone, and you're changing banks. That's certainly three things that I've taken out. I do apologise. My computer fan's starting to belt at me. It's been sitting up on the dash, and
I'm thinking that might be a problem with the heat. That's for sure. Where you are in Brisbane, anyway.
I've tried putting my tried putting my computer bag behind it to keep the sun off it, but it's booming over, and I've now got my computer sitting in front of the air conditioner. So yes, I'm in my car, just so you know. It's my my office for
the story. We got getting good internet strength at home at your new home in Brisbane has been a real challenge. So
it has. So I do apologise for this, but anyway, I'm cooling my computer down now, so it's good. So that's sorry, I'm just getting the fans down and prepared for it. So yeah, look, it's about being proactive. So the question that I'm going to ask Matt is, it's interesting that we'll jump on the phone, start making calls, start doing specials, but running a business and having a BDM, shouldn't we be doing that anyway? Isn't that what we should be doing each week? Getting on the, I'm not saying, being desperate to get the business, but, if we were to get 10 managements a week, I'm sure that we could make it happen if we really put our mind and focus to it, and having a BDM to jump on board and do that can do that.
Yeah, I mean, with my first company, keep in mind there's always low-hanging fruit in any market. So one way to close more is just expand your market and get the low-hanging fruit. But in my peak year with my last company, when I was in charge of all the business development, I closed just shy of 1,000 properties in 1 year. So it can be done. But what did I do all day? Call. It's just picking up the phone. I will say that much calling was tedious. It was. I can't say it's my favorite thing in the world, but I sure liked closing. I liked the results.
Yep.
And there's a really great book, and I can't remember the name of it right now. It's basically all about sales and about how all these things try to sell you on the new thing. It's one way or the other. You got to do these postcards, or you got to do it this way, or use this list, or use this social media, and all those things are great. But the number one thing you have to do is just get on the phone. If you don't get on the phone, all your inbound marketing, it's not going to be as effective.
Yeah.
So yeah, it sucks. You just got to do it.
I think a good BDM on the phone will beat a good social media or marketing campaign any day. And
I agree.
It's the most effective way.
Social media is a lot more fun, but on the phone is where the money happens.
Yeah. Certainly having a combination of the 2 and 3 and 4 is very beneficial for you. So where would 80% of the business be coming in for you? 1,000 doors, in a 12-month period, so I know that you just said that you're picking up the phone and you're making those calls, but where were you getting the leads from, Matt? What was happening there? Because, to get 1,000 doors, that, we're talking 4,000 phone calls.
Yeah.
So where were you getting these names and emails and things from? Were you buying a list? Is that something that happened?
Yeah, so that mainly came from a combination of paid leads and referrals. So part of the low-hanging fruit is when you have 1,000 or so clients, then you're going to have a lot more referrals that you can make happen. So it kind of feeds. To be clear, it sounds big, right? I mean, if you got 100 referrals in a year, most any business person would think, business development manager might think this is amazing. When you're factoring that over 10 locations and, a couple thousand different owners, is that really a great number? Well, probably it's okay. So, but it's just a volume game at that point. So it kind of fed into it where, now I'd say 80% of everything I do comes from networking with investors and our current clients. But we still do paid leads on the side. And with the first company we did, paid leads, a lot of paid leads, and from different methods, AdWords, a company called allpropertymanagement.com, which is one of those resellers of leads. And then there's a few other services out there. So, try a little bit of everything. And, I will say that sometimes people get hung up in again, how would I put this? I just think that a lot of things, there's just always this elitist of, I wouldn't do this, or I wouldn't do that again, or I'm above this. And, it's, or I hate that lead source. Look, I just want to grow, right? So as long as I'm not losing money, if I spend $5,000 and I only get $5,000 back in from it for every 5,000 and it's break even, great. I'll do that because, assuming I'm accounting for labor and everything, great. To me, I'll do that. I'm going to pay for that because eventually those people can turn into referral sources, or they'll buy more investment properties, or it gets my brand out there for a net difference of $0, right? So, take what you can get. Obviously, if you have limited resources, put it towards the best method. But, I'd say networking is your key for long-term health.
Yeah, cool. That's awesome.
So, Matt, with let's say you're out there at listing appointment, the owner says, well, why should we go with you and not your competitors down the road? What are some of the points of difference that you use that convinces people to go with you?
One thing, and it's completely lame, guys, but it is convenient to, when people say, how long have you been in business? Everyone hears that, right? Well, how long have you been in business? You can always say, well, we have combined 20 years or things like that. You hear those phrases. You have different ways of getting around it. It's nice that I can say, well, I've managed like 4,000 doors. So I'm one of the most experienced managers in the country, right? So at that point, it establishes credibility. Frankly, I also grow this goatee, which makes me look at least 15 years older. It's fantastic. Without it, I look like I'm still a freshman in college, and that's why I grow it. But no, the big things is that it's not the numbers. It's being able to talk with confidence and experience. Stories are a great way to sell. And if you don't have little anecdotes and little stories, and I know Darren and Deniz, heard you guys several times, so I know that you tell little stories and examples of things. Yep. And that sells, right? It's an emotional connection. So it's one thing to tell when an owner asks you about swimming pools in the backyard and liability. It's nothing to tell a story, to say why they shouldn't worry about it, or why you should do these things. So I have lots of stories. I'm a story person. My family says I tell too many stories. And that's okay. So the other thing is that you want to come across as an expert, whatever it is. Maybe you're not an expert in everything right away, and no one's going to be an expert in everything ever, but find a niche in your property management and become an expert in that initially so that you can sound knowledgeable. And really, I feel that the reason why I can close so well with clients is that I don't do heavy sales pitch things, got to do this or got to do that and say this keyword here. It's because I believe in giving information, and I'm an expert in analysis. I'm an expert at optimizing portfolios and properties. And I can say, that, look, if you do these things, then this is the likely result. So in fact, my company name Formatic comes from formula and automatic. When you have lots of properties, you can do A/B testing. Property management is kind of funny because I know it's bigger in Australia, but here in the US, only recently have there become really big companies. And so most property management was on the side to sales and still is in large part. And so you have these people who are doing 20, 30, 80, 150 doors, And everybody has ideas of, well, this is how I do it and it works great, or this is how I do it. And when you dive into it, I'm a big research guy. When you dive into it, I find that a lot of that is just a cult of personality, where it's by sheer force of that person's willpower that they make that method work, but it's not scalable. And if it's not scalable, that means it's hard to apply it universally to other property managers, even outside of your company. So I call it horse wisdom. I'm not sure what the right phrase would be, but it's things that sounds good, they make you feel good, but put to the test at scale, at a large scale, they could just be a statistical anomaly. And
interesting.
Yeah, so I'd say formula and automatic is that if you do certain things, take the time, take some of your properties with the owner's permission and test, should you do the late fee on this day or that day? When's the right time to do this or that? And then track the results. You can track just about anything. And so you do that, you're going to be able to then go back to an owner. And when they say, well, my manager before always did this. And you say, well, first off, you're talking to me because you're firing them. So obviously they're not great. But the second thing is, let me explain, say, owner, that's a great concern, because you never invalidate their concerns. Acknowledge the concern. That's one of the things I always believe in doing. Acknowledge the concerns, because it's a big investment their home is. And then say how you handle that concern. The big difference is, go ahead.
I was just saying, what you've got in place in your office, what system you've got in place so that doesn't happen in your office, whatever their concern is.
Matt, if we can just move on to the next question, is that all right? Just with so you've obviously got a fee structure. You need to get that fee structure because you've worked out that's what we need to manage the property. The owner said to you, well, look, there's a really cheap agent down the road. If you can match your management fee with the other agent, we'll go with you. What's your best response to that to bring them back to signing up at your fees? How do you deal with that?
So I'll tell you exactly what I say as if you're a person on the phone. So, Darren, there's a lot of companies out there that fit a lot of different markets. Everybody has their niche. Now, Formatic is a performance-based, high-level professional management firm. We never call ourselves a company; we're a firm. There are other companies out there run by amazing people. I know many of these people, Darren, and some of them try to be a jack of all trades, and that's okay. They're experts at none, but they do a fine job. There's others that are cut rate management companies. If you just want someone to collect the rent, then those fees make sense.
Yeah.
However, we're who the people come to, and even other managers send when there's a really big problem and it needs to be fixed right, or when people are ready to look at the long-term maximization of their returns. And so our fees are based off of doing extra things, doing those extra inspections, doing the 360 video inspections, doing all this documentation, keep you in the loop. We have a 7-point guarantee that we give you a month if you management if we screw up. Now, if you want that assurance, if you want that peace of mind, these are our fees. We can't really match them. But again, the other companies are great, Darren. And if you just need someone to collect the rent and you just want to, you're going to kind of do things your own way, then I'm going to recommend you go with them. I think they'll be a great choice. And I can even recommend a few if you want.
Okay, that's a good response. I like it. Get what you pay for.
Yeah. Very nice.
But never knock the other people.
No, well done. You spun that one very, very well. Deniz, your turn.
Yeah. So you've got a BDM now. Good old Tyler. I've met him a couple of times now. Obviously, we all caught up in Lake Tahoe, and then we saw him at the Door Grow event that you weren't allowed to go to, but we all understand why. What KPIs have you got in for him? What tasks have you got him doing to, some examples of things that you've got him doing to get more doors on?
Yeah, so we track things such as the cost per lead, cost per close lead, cost per lead by source, and cost per close lead by source. So this goes back to, I'll invest in anything that's at least break even, but I want to at least make sure it's break even.
Money. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So those are the big things. And then there's out of that, you have how many leads have come in, what's closing, what's expected to close in the next week, what's the dollar value. I call it everyone has their own different value, but I call it the 2-year value of a property, the base value, which is, I just count base management fees. I don't count lease fees or let fees. You call them let fees. Yeah. You know, those are the kinds of things that we track.
Yep.
And then we have systems in place to track them.
Yeah, and what are some examples that you've got Tyler doing to chase for business?
Well, again, these days, most of what we do is from networking investment clubs. So he goes to those. In fact, that's how I found him. He was a guy I met in there. Some of the best people I work with that have come under the Formatic fold, I met through the real estate investor clubs.
Yep.
So building those relationships. Outside of that, we do have some paid leads that we do. And so it's just a matter of hitting them as soon as they come, having form letters, having automation, just getting things taken care of quickly, and then putting the systems in place. We are actually reworking our systems right now. Actually, I was talking with you guys. I did end up going with HubSpot, so we're redeveloping we're enhancing our lead capabilities in terms of keeping things all in one. Right now, they're spread out over 5 different systems.
Sure.
But yeah, he's tracking those things. He's making the calls and sending the emails, and of course, you know, he's listening to the advice I have for him, and he's a great listener, and he's a great doer.
Yeah, excellent. So, what's your goal for the next 12 months? So, what is the goal for the company over the next 12 months?
12 months.
Yep.
Let's see here. So we just opened Colorado Springs. We're about to bring someone on out in another office in Coachella. Open up Las Vegas in the next 3 to 4 months, and then I'm planning on opening up our first international office, Mexico City, Mexico, end of the year. Already have some people down there for working on that. And then I haven't set the other office locations, but I want to do 2 more office locations. So to open up 4 offices this year, minimum 4 to 6 is the goal with 1 international.
A lot of growth there, that's for sure. So I think, Dennis, we're going to be keeping our eye on this guy. So
yeah, it certainly will be. I mean, Darren and I are going to Las Vegas next month, so maybe we could keep an eye out for some office spaces for you.
Maybe
at the Mirage Hotel, of course.
That's where all the good property managers are. Great.
That's where they will be next month. Anyway, let's
clarify. Hold on, just to clarify for the Australian and New Zealand people, we are there for work. We are there for a conference. Okay.
Yeah, there. That's straight after Virginia, the conference there. So let's just move on. But last question now. We'll wrap things up. But Matt, you're let's say you're speaking. You've come to the Inspire Growth Conference. You're on stage. You're speaking to business owners, BDMs, and you've got 1 minute. What's the most important thing that you would like to say in 1 minute?
Be confident. Know what you're doing. Know why you do it. So know what you offer. Know why you offer it. Be confident in your responses. And then I would say just have clear goals. You know, people say, why do you have these kind of crazy goals? It's because if I don't have goals, what am I doing every day my job for? So maybe your goals aren't massive growth. Maybe it's to provide for your family, figure out what that is. And then from there, you can work your way backwards to how you want to do things, how that your work will fit into that lifestyle, how many calls you have to make, how many clients you need. I think that's the thing. If you know why you're doing it, you can figure out how to make it happen.
Yeah. And how can people contact you if they've got any questions or just want to have a quick chat?
Yeah, so they can have my direct email. It's Matt, M-A-T-T, at formaticpm.com. That's FORMATICPM.com. I'm always happy to chat. I do a lot of mentorship just for kicks because it's fun. Look, really, I enjoy it. I made a lot of mistakes, guys. Obviously, I'm not putting them all on video for recording purposes. But I'm happy to, in private, talk about how to avoid a lot of the stuff that happens. And anyone can reach out. I'm on Facebook also.
Certainly looking forward to catching up you next time so we can learn a little bit more about these mistakes. I mean, we've made plenty.
There's a training session in those mistakes, Matt. Absolutely. They're mistakes that I'd love to hear about certainly one day because that is the pathway, and the milestones of success are your mistakes that you make along the way. And you have to make the errors, the failures to succeed. You know, that's just that's the way it works.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. All right. Well, let's wrap things up. Matt, thanks very much. Deniz, this is a guy we are going to be keeping an eye on, and really appreciate the connection, Matt. Thank you so much for sharing, and thanks so much to everyone for listening in and watching in. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.